Can you get away with mouthing off to a cop? Alright, can you say your alphabet to J for me? Oh, sure. Which one of you guys is J? I'd just picked up my paycheck back in high school and must have been 16 or 17 and a fairly new driver. An officer pulled me over for not pulling completely into the road, going from driveway to driveway, like I drove 10 feet on the wrong side, but there was no traffic. The officer said, "Can you even afford a ticket as a new driver?" And my dumb butt said, "I did just pick up my paycheck." It wasn't until afterwards that I thought more along the lines of having demerit points on my license is more than likely what he meant. He let me go with a warning. Driving through Kansas City and I got pulled over. I was wearing a Twins cap. The cop said something about being ready to give me a warning, but then he saw my cap, and I said, "Hey, it's not like the Royals and Twins have been good at the same time." He said he's actually a Cubs fan, and I couldn't stop myself from saying, "Oh, I'm sorry." He laughed and gave me a warning. We were in a car park just off the motorway in a Toyota MR2. The police pulled in and got out of their car. One of the officers put his hand on the bonnet, the hood, of the MR2 and said, "Bonnet's a bit hot. Been ragging it, have we?" And I replied, "Funny that, mate. It's rear engine." The second officer found it hilarious, and the first looked incredibly embarrassed. I was waiting to buy something at a store, but there was no one behind the cash register. There was already a lady in front of me who seemed to have been waiting for a while. We rang the little bell a couple of times, but no one appeared. After waiting some time, I joked, "We should just steal this stuff. That will get their attention." The lady in front of me responded by showing me her dry cleaning bag, full of police uniforms. So I said the first thing that came to mind. "You have to get your uniforms dry cleaned? Does that get expensive?" And we ended up having a fairly cheerful conversation about dress codes and employee perks, and the laundry facilities in different neighborhood apartment buildings, and the turnaround time of different neighborhood dry cleaners until the cashier finally showed up. That sounds exactly like my luck. Of all the people to make that joke to, it had to be a gosh darn law enforcer. Luckily, this lady sounded chill. Got pulled over on my motorcycle. The cop said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Because I wasn't wearing my seatbelt?" He got a chuckle, and I only got a warning. The next cop didn't find it nearly as amusing. Cop said to me, "Were you eating an apple while driving?" "Can't I eat while I drive?" "No, but I can smoke, right?" "Yeah." Then I was smoking the apple. I once pulled myself over after I thought I blew through a red light, since there was a cop right there. I was a new driver, saw him, and freaked out. He asked me why he shouldn't write me a ticket, and I told him, "I really don't want you to?" Got off with a warning. I work nights, so the cops will occasionally cruise through our parking lot in the middle of nowhere and just check things out. I was outside on my break smoking and playing Jetpack Joyride when they lowered their window. "What are you doing here at this time of night?" "My fricking job. Why are you out here at this time of night?" "Our fricking jobs. Have a nice night." "You too." Montreal cops are nice, despite their silly trousers. He asked me if I had a dead body in my back seat. I said, "Oh, totally. You want to meet him? He's kind of shy." He laughed and told his partner, "He said totally." Took my license, sat in their car for a minute, and then drove up next to me, handed me my cards from their window, and drove off. I later realized that a coat and hat were on top of a mess in my back seat and actually could have looked like a dead body. A cop pulled me and my friend over when we were both 17. Pretty sure he just saw a couple of teens in a car late at night and figured we were up to no good. That being said, we had a lot of green herb in the car, in a bag. The cop came over and said, "So, you have anything illegal in your car?" "Just my good looks," I reply. The cop laughs and lets us leave. My heart just about gave out, it was beating so fast. He told me how much over the limit I was going, and I said, "Well, you looked bored sitting there, so I figured I'd give you something to do." He laughed and let me off the whole thing with a warning. I was flying back from Europe once. At the Brussels airport, I brought a jar of mustard in duty-free. They sealed it in the special bag. Put it in my carry-on. Got it through customs, no problem. Bringing it back through TSA in the US, at a major international airport, it gets confiscated. It's in a sealed jar, in a sealed bag, having clearly been brought at an airport and just brought through an international border. The TSA guy confiscates it. I told him to keep saving the country one jar of mustard at a time. Yeah, TSA customs are stupid. When I was 13 and coming back from vacation in England, I had some guy completely flip his crap, screaming at me because I dared to pull my old iPod out of my pocket for 2 seconds to check the time, not realizing that was a problem. I got yelled at by some grouchy middle-aged guy and he went on for a solid minute over it. Like, is it really necessary to flip crap on some kid over something so stupid? Just say, "Hey, that's not allowed. Put it away." My Uber driver was telling me a story about how he got pulled over for going 90 on a sharp turn. The radar was obviously malfunctioning because he would either have flipped his car or slid off the road if he was going that fast. The motorcycle cop was too stupid to figure this out and threatened to arrest him, so he said, "What are you gonna do, put me on the back of your bike?" The cop got super teed off and actually arrested him and gave him the ticket, and the cop lied about where he clocked the Uber driver. Luckily, the Uber driver had a dash cam and got the ticket and all other charges dropped. But damn, the gall and stupidity of that cop make me feel sorry for whoever else has to deal with him. I don't know what happened to the cop, guys. Yeah, lying under oath is bad, but I don't know what happened to anyone that isn't the Uber driver. In college, I once thanked a cop for not being a jerk about it, like most officers are, after getting ticketed. He wrote it all down, and the judge repeated that to me when I fought the ticket in court. She was clearly amused, and I got out of the ticket. He asked why I was going 52 in a 35, and I told him, general lack of awareness. This didn't get me out of the ticket, but it gave the cop a pretty good laugh. Years ago, during a heavy substance-fueled bender at a London festival, I walked up to some policemen and said, "Guess what I'm on?" They smirked and told me to move along. I had one ask, "You were speeding, so why shouldn't I give you a citation?" I said, "I'm not worth the paperwork." He gave me a little half-smile for a brief second, before his face returned to the stern face that he had the entire encounter. My friend got pulled over doing 20 over. We were college kids at the time. Officer walks over to the window and does his normal, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" routine, and then turns to me when it's all done and asks, "So, should I give your friend here a ticket?" And with a smile I said, "Yes, sir, he most likely deserves it." The cop laughed, smiled, and walked away. Well, you got off the ticket. I do wonder if you got a vicious punch in the arm as soon as the cop pulled away, though. My birthday 3 years ago. I was crossing the street to my car, and suddenly 2 squad cars pull up, each with 2 officers in them for some reason. As I was unlocking my car, all 4 got out of their cars and approached me. One of them asked me to please stop and walk over to them. I did. He then asked if I knew why they were stopping me, to which I replied, "I'm assuming you're strippers." "Excuse me?" "Yeah, you must be strippers. It's my birthday and 4 suspiciously good-looking police officers just stopped me for absolutely no reason. 3 of them laughed and 1 did not. I then had to wait for 10 minutes while he wrote me a warning for jaywalking. When I was a kid, my parents had one of those Oldsmobile Silhouette minivans with the long nose. I was driving it and I accelerated to get through a yellow light before it turned red. That's when the cop turned on the lights. When he got to the window, he asked, "Do you know what a yellow light means, son?" I said, "That means it's going to turn red soon." He said, "No, it means clear the intersection." I told him, "Officer, with the size of this vehicle and the rate I was moving, had anything entered the intersection, I'd have cleared it right out, I promise." He laughed and told me that since I'd caught him off guard and made him laugh, he would let me off with a warning. Me and my 3 friends made a big cranberry vodka in a liter cranberry bottle, and we were walking towards a bar in Manhattan, passing it around. One friend was holding it when a cop slowly pulled up to us. I was the one closest to his window and he waved me over and asks, "Why is your friend holding a bottle of cranberry juice?" It was pretty obvious it wasn't cranberry on a Friday night in the East Village. I said, "He's on his period." The cop laughed and made us dump it. My brother and I, both underage and both very drunk, were walking home with a dozen donuts and the remains of a 6-pack when the cops saw us mostly stumbling along the main road. They pulled around behind us and scared the pants off us with the siren. One cop got out of the car and asked us where we were going. We offered him our donuts. He took our beer. Joke was on him, it was Bud Light. They left us to continue on our way home. I don't think we'd get away with that today. You know that whole Dave Chappelle bit about, "I didn't know I couldn't do that"? Basically, that. I was speeding, although I didn't know I was speeding because there wasn't a sign for miles in a construction zone. The officer pulled me over and told me how, since it's a construction zone, the ticket could have been so much worse than a regular speeding ticket. I said, I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, I know there's normally signage saying "men at work, slow down" or something of that nature, but 1, no signs giving me a speed limit, and 2, nobody working. As far as I was concerned, I was driving the normal speed limit, as I was unaware that it had dropped. I didn't know I couldn't do that, got me out of a $700 ticket because he let me off with a warning. I worked at the NCO club on an Air Force base as a teenager. I was a cook sometimes and a dishwasher. I blew through a stop sign and was speeding. Apparently I was being lit up and chased and didn't realize it until I saw the gate closing as I was trying to get off base. The security forces, AFMP, asked me a bunch of questions about it, and I told him I wasn't paying attention due to my eating the cheesy fries that I made sitting in the passenger seat. Then I asked, "Do you want some?" He stared at me for a second and told me to leave. Yelling at a cop for calling me Jack Sparrow instead of Captain Jack Sparrow, while heavily intoxicated and dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. When I was 18, a friend of mine and I stepped out of a restaurant to have a cigarette. We were in the parking lot smoking when a cop pulls up. We weren't doing anything illegal, so we kept doing what we were doing. He walks up to us and asks what we're doing. We tell him, but he doesn't believe us because there were reports of cars getting broken into, which I doubt. He decides to search us. We should have resisted, but didn't know any better at the time. He pulls a brown paper bag out of my friend's pocket, and with a smirk on his face, he asks, "What am I gonna find in here?" My friend keeps a straight face and says, "It's the Emancipation Proclamation," to which the cop says, "Yeah, right." Turns out, it actually was a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation. He had been to the History Museum that day and got a tiny copy as a souvenir. The cop didn't say anything, just handed back the bag and got in his car. "Did you see the speed limit sign?" "Yes, sir, I just didn't see you sitting behind it." I'll never forget how hard he scrunched up his face, trying not to laugh. I was exiting the beer tent at a local summer festival. There were 2 county sheriffs guarding the entrance and exit at the time. Drunk me walks up to one and says, "To protect and serve, right?" And he replies, "Yes, sir." Again, drunk me says, "Well, you could serve me by protecting this beer. I'll be right back." And then I set the beer on the ground near his feet while I went to use the porta-john bathroom. I came back and my beer was still there, untouched. The officer did his job. Got pulled over for quickly accelerating after a traffic light. When the cop asked why, I said it was to try to get away from the butthole with their brights on. He turned to see he still had his brights on and said to have a safe drive home. Well, I'd say you really took a gamble there, and in this case it paid off. But given how many innocents we've seen get ticketed, I'd say you got lucky. When I was 20, I worked at a video store. This one night we had to do inventory, which we started at midnight, and I helped out until 3 a.m. But I was the opener, so I left. I was on my way home when I was pulled over. My tail light was out. I didn't know. The cop left me off with a warning, but it took 15 minutes for him to run my stuff. 2 miles down the same road, but in a different town, I was pulled over by a cop from that town. My tail light was out. I didn't know. The cop let me off with a warning, but it took almost 20 minutes to do so. 5 more miles down the road and yet another town over, I was pulled over again. It's now 4 a.m. My tail light is out. I didn't know. I'm let off with a warning. I make it home at 4:45 a.m. I have work at 9 a.m. I got to sleep. I woke up, skipping a much-needed shower, and left for work. I get pulled over about a mile away from my job. The officer said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I said, "Yep, my tail light's out." The officer, "If you know why haven't you fixed it?" "Well, officer, I left work 6 hours ago. I was pulled over 3 times in an hour and a half, and each time I was told that my tail light was out. In the 4 hours since I got home, I went to bed and woke up to go back to work, and I haven't had time to fix it." The officer asked, 3 times? "Yep, so if you're going to give me the ticket, give me the ticket, otherwise I'm assuming that you and your fellow officers just want me to be late to things." I was let off with a warning. In short, got pulled over 4 times in 5 hours and let off with warnings. Driving a 1990 Mercury Sable, dented and miscolored. Do you have any large denominations of US currency with you? Was it the flashy car that tipped you off? You were driving 20 miles below the speed limit. Yes. Why? A cop was following me. A party got busted when I was in college. A majority of the attendees were underage. The cocky campus policeman walked up and said, well, looks like we're going to be checking IDs and handing out underages tonight." Immediately after saying this, his 19-year-old daughter walked out. I was sitting on the porch and said, "You still want those IDs?" It was my first time getting pulled over. I asked for his autograph. I didn't even have my license yet. I was on a learner's permit, but I was late to school and my mum kept telling me to hurry. When I got pulled over, the cop told me I was doing 53 and a 35. I looked at him and said, "Dyslexia?" He was not amused, but he didn't give me any crap for being a smartass. Got pulled up for wearing headphones as a hands-free device. Apparently doing that is illegal in Pennsylvania. He said it was because then you can't hear sirens, so I replied, then why can deaf people get driver's licenses? I tried to call the police to report a crime, but it wasn't an emergency. A guy was walking around my neighborhood, obviously casing houses. I called the police department after hours and couldn't get a hold of anyone. I passed a cop while driving and sped past him so that he'd pull me over. When he said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I said, "Yeah, because I wanted you to so I could actually talk to an officer." He went and found the guy and arrested him because he had a warrant out on him. For suspected DUI, I wasn't drunk at all, after about 15 to 20 minutes of field sobriety tests. Do you know the difference between being intoxicated and being impaired? Do you know which one you are? One of them involves me having at least a blood alcohol content of 0.08 in the state of New York, and the other is a synonym you want me to admit so that you can take me in even though I passed all of your sobriety tests. There was a long pause. "You can go, but I'm blasting out your license plate number, and if someone else sees you so much as switch lanes without signaling, they'll book you." That guy was a fricking jerk. He had a big old 1980s mustache and aviator shades on. I asked if his nose came off with the stash and glasses. A buddy of mine is a cop and was at a concert doing security, as in he walked in uniform under the pretense of establishing a presence to dissuade unlawful activity. He really just wanted to see Metallica. Anyway, he's there and some guy lights up a doobie right next to him, turns, looks at him, and the exchange goes, "Ah, crap, a cop. Relax. Really, but this is tobacco. It's a hand-rolled tobacco cigarette. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Oh. Do you want some? Get the frick away from me." Not me, but my girlfriend. I was visiting her at her college town, and we were driving around to get some food. She starts to go down this road that's a one-way road, except she's doing the wrong way. And of course, as luck would have it, the car coming towards her is a cop. She's honking at him, not realizing she's the one going the wrong way. The cop puts his lights on and starts walking towards us. He goes through the motions, license, insurance, and stuff, and tells her why she's being pulled over and all that, and then she goes, "Oh, so this is why they pulled me over last time." My girlfriend is very chipper and happy-go-lucky, whatever you call it, so she's saying this with the biggest grin on her face. The cop stops for a second and stares at her and then at me with my "oh crap" look on my face. The cop stares at her and then goes, "And you didn't get a ticket last time?" And she replies, again, full smile and chipper, "Nope, I guess cops just like me." He walks away, comes back, "Okay, well, be more careful next time." And so we went on our merry way, as I was confused to all heck. I guess cops really do just like her. That sounds like it was just a case of the cop literally not knowing how to react to the situation and just trying to wipe it away from his reality. Nice job. I was driving in Boston, headed to a Bruins game, and I missed the damn turn for the parking garage. I didn't see any cops, so I decided to make an illegal U-turn at the next light. Sure enough, lights go on behind me, and I get pulled over. The officer comes up to my window and hits me with a, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I said, "Yeah, 'cause I'm a butthole." After a good laugh and a warning, he told me to go be a butthole on the other side of the city. I was riding my motorcycle away from the traffic lights at a speed allowed in the area. Admittedly, my engine just revved rather loud. The police officer said, "I've stopped you for speeding." I wasn't speeding. I could tell by the sound of your engine you were speeding. That's absurd. Are you trying to tell me you can tell what speed something is going by the noise? Yes. Okay. I pointed at a plane flying overhead. What speed's that going at then? No ticket, but he wasn't very amused. This wasn't so much smart-ass, but still awesome. I got pulled over by two cops, and it turns out there's been some burglaries in the area and they're out looking. They take a look at me and decide I can't be the person they're looking for, but one decides to have some small talk. While we're chatting away, this colleague casually circles my car with a torch. I start to tense up. I have 4 tires balder than Professor X, and if they spot them, they could take away my license on the spot. The searching cop comes back and pulls away the chatty one. Excusing himself, they walk around my car. They look at my tires. I see the chatty one shake his head. Coming back to my window, he says, "Miss..." He can see the look of horror on my face. He knows I'm screwed. "Have you had a look at your tires recently?" My face says it all. He regards me silently, then seems to come to a conclusion. He takes a deep breath and suddenly practically shouts, "Well, they're great tires. Perfect. So much tread left on them, it's insane. Possibly the best tires I've ever seen. Definitely wouldn't insist on going straight to a garage first thing in the morning and getting them all changed. I stared at him for a second, then caught on and replied in a tone equally as loud and deliberate, "Oh, thank you, officer. I promise that I certainly won't go straight to the garage and get 4 brand new ones tomorrow. Have a great evening. Thank you for your time." "You're welcome," he booms and gestures for me to leave. As I look in my mirrors driving away, I see the searching cop gesturing at the chatty one in confusion and annoyance, while my cop just shakes his head and smiles. Legend. I offered the officer a donut from the box on my front seat when he pulled me over due to a burned-out tail light. He took 2, gave me a warning to get it fixed ASAP, and left. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.